Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Planning and Development Advisory Committee for August the 10th, 2021. Calling the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. Start with Deep Bassi,
Present.
Dan Kennedy,
Present.
and I, John Sapoulos, am present as well. Also in attendance, we have our clerk, Courtney Hoyt-Fox, Deputy Clerk Jeff Bunn, Secretary Treasurer Lynn Banks, County Planning Staff Zach Prince, and Joanna Salzberg. So as part of the Committee of Adjustment, we will be rendering decisions on 3 minor variances. We'll adjourn that meeting and then we'll move into the Planning Development Advisory Committee where we have 9 severances, which we will provide comments on to the county. And we have 1 Strout Property Standards Appeal, which we will be taking into consideration and rendering a decision. Okay, so let's get on with the item number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Lynn, do we have any?
No, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay, so let's move into item 5, approval of minutes, July the 13th, 2021. So I have a mover.
I'll move it.
Okay, Fumbo moved by Paulo, I'm Deep, and seconded by Dan. All in favor?
Approved.
Okay, and Dan, I approve as well.
Yep.
Okay, so please note that this meeting is video and audio recorded, and all audio meetings are uploaded to municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. Okay, so the purpose of the application for minor variance is the considered hearings, and it's to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions or express views with respect to minor variance before us today. The township requests you please notify the secretary treasurer of the committee by email at lynnbanks@puslinch.ca, lbanks, I should say, at puslinch.ca. If you wish to be on record, would like to be notified of future hearings and decisions regarding a particular application. The format of the hearing is as follows. Staff will present the information reports, specifically outlining the purpose of the application, summarizing compliance with the township notification submission requirements, and outlining staff comments, agency comments, and public comments of those who could not attend. Then we'll ask the applicant or agent to come forward and present the purpose and details of the application and any further relevant information. Following this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, or express their views on the proposal. You will have a maximum of 10 minutes to speak. Following this, the members of the committee can likewise obtain clarification, ask questions. Then the item will be brought into the committee, and the committee will deliberate the application and render a decision, and the subject decision will be subject to 20-day appeal period. Okay, so let's move into the applications. For minor variance under section 45 of the Planning Act to be heard by the committee this date, 6A. Minor variance application D13-HUT, Sharon and James Hutton, 6547 Wellington Road 34, rear part lots 2 and 3, concession 2, Township of Puslinch, requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 4.2B1 accessory apartments. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from 1, section 4B1 to permit accessory apartment to be located 74 meters from the single detached dwelling on the lot instead of maximum 15 meters as required. So we'll move into these staff comments. Lynn, would you please summarize the application, notification, submission requirements, outlining staff, agency comments and recommendations, as well as public comments of those who could not attend?
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met and the following comments were received. Firstly, from the Township of Puslinch Fire and Rescue. The department has no concerns provided that adequate access for emergency vehicles is provided to both buildings to ensure a quick response in an emergency. the Township Building Department. The building department does not support this proposed increased setback from the main dwelling from a maximum of 15 meters to 73.08 meters, as this is a major increase in distance for a permitted accessory apartment and does not appear to be minor in nature. Should the committee approve this application, building permits will be required for the conversion of existing space within the dwelling to storage. This will be to maintain the 130 square meter maximum total floor area permitted for accessory dwelling unit. Any plumbing that varies from the original plans and records will also need a permit. If the plumbing fixtures are increased over and above the original approved permits, a full septic review will be required. Further review and more technical comments will be made once the building permit application has been received. And our final comment is from the GRCA. The proposed minor variance application is to request to allow an accessory apartment to be located 74 meters from the main dwelling area, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum separation of 15 meters. The accessory apartment / additional residential unit is existing, and alterations to the unit or servicing are not proposed at this time. Although the main driveway on the property is partially within the floodplain associated with Irish Creek, current information indicates that safe access is available to the additional residential unit and the main dwelling. Based on the above, GRCA staff do not anticipate any negative impacts to the adjacent natural hazard or natural heritage features as a result of this application. Due to the features noted above, a majority of the subject property is regulated by the GRCA under Ontario Reg 150/06. Any future development within the regulated area on the subject lands will require the prior issuance of a permit pursuant to Ontario Reg 150/06. The permit process involves the submission of a permit application to this office, the review of the application by authority staff, and the subsequent approval / refusal of the permit by the GRCA.
Did we have any public comments from those who could not attend the meeting?
No, we did not.
Great, thank you. Okay, would Clerk Courtney Hortfox please have the owner or applicant join the panelists and present their application? And as well, could you please put on a appropriate sketch for the us to look at while we're having our applicant or agent discuss.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Robson. I'm here on behalf of James Hutton for this minor variance application. I'd like to thank staff for taking the time and patience working with us through the process. We had a couple of deferrals to get more information from the GRCA and additional information on the property. So thank you, staff, for helping us on that. So a little background on the property. I'll refer to the old dwelling as the accessory dwelling unit and the new dwelling as the larger dwelling that was completed in 2014. So as a condition for the new dwelling to be constructed, the old dwelling was to be decommissioned and converted into a clubhouse. This received approval back, I believe it was 2013 for this to occur. However, this was all done by the previous owner. So when my client purchased the property in 2014, it was still being used as a dwelling. So the previous owner either converted it back into a residential use or never decommissioned it. However, my client was advised that all permits had been received. So it was his understanding all along that this was a permitted use. However, there was a bylaw complaint, I understand, in late 2020 with respect to a second non-authorized dwelling being on the property, which has started this whole conversation. So staff had been to the site and identified the major issue was the setback from the main dwelling. There was a housekeeping amendment actually that was done in early 2021 that permitted accessory dwelling units to be in a detached structure. This was not the case previously. So based on this housekeeping amendment, we've now applied for the variance just for the setback. We meet all other requirements in the bylaw by limiting the size just to the upper story, with the lower basement area being for storage, for Mr. Hutton's personal business, secured storage. We believe it makes a lot of sense for this to be a dwelling, given it was previously a house for 50 years. It was built in the 1960s. It's has a functioning well and septic system, and it's a low impact development. It's buffered from the street. There was no comments from the neighbors on it. It represents good planning, in my opinion, to have this versus having to construct another structure from an environmental standpoint, just by the resources. So we feel it makes a lot of sense to keep it. And given we're just dealing with a setback, we feel the minor variance route is appropriate. The background on why you have this 15-meter setback is to allow buildings to be clustered together on the property. We appreciate this and understand it. However, when you look at the overall parcel, I think it can be easily argued that this building is located within the overall buildings cluster on the property. Again, it's very well buffered, and this would permit no new development to happen. So it would have no impact on the environment, no impact on neighbors, no impact on anything really. And again, no one came up with any comments during the process of circulation. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee. And yeah, I think it's an easy win with respect to housing. We have a housing crisis right now that not enough of it's being built. And given we already have an existing dwelling here, it makes sense to use it as such, given our current climate. So I'm happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. It's the public's opportunity. Lynn, are there any registrants who've requested to speak?
No, I did not receive any requests.
Courtney, are you aware of anybody in the audience who wishes to speak and ask questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll ask that anybody in the attendee section that wishes to make a comment, just use the raise your hand feature. Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands being raised.
Okay, so let's go to our committee members to ask questions. Deep, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment on this applications. I don't believe this is minor in nature, to be honest. I think it needs to go through the zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Deep on this myself, especially since the building department has taken such a stand on this.
Okay. And I have a similar comment as well. I don't think it's minor in nature. The staff planning report is very extensive and makes significant arguments for why this is not a minor variance. So accordingly, let's go through the actual voting process. In the matter of section 45 of the Planning Act as amended, new comprehensive zoning law, bylaw 23-2018 is amended, and an application for minor variance. The purpose of effect of the applications to request relief of zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended to permit accessory building to be located 24 meters from a single attached dwelling on the lot instead of maximum 15 meters as required. So it's either approved, opposed, or deferred. Deep?
Deferred.
Or opposed?
Sorry, say that again.
If it's deferred, you're coming back to this committee.
Or then refused.
Okay, so you're opposed then.
Opposed.
Okay. Dan?
I'm opposed.
And I'm opposed as well. So the decision of the committee, it's opposed, and the reasoning is that the committee does not find it to be a minor in nature and a zoning bylaw amendment is required. Accordingly, you will have, like I mentioned before, 20 days to appeal the decision. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next item now. Okay, we have minor variance application D13-CON, Kelly Contini, 4660, Galwaya, Puslinch Town Line, Part Lot 13, Concession 11, Township Puslinch, requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 4.16.1 MDS 1, new non-farm uses, and section 11.3 zone requirements, table 11.2 agricultural zone standards. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from section 4.16 to permit a reduced minimum distance separation type 1 of 87 meters instead of 137 meters as required. 2, section 11.3 zone requirements, table 11.2 agricultural zone standards to permit a reduced frontage of 115 meters instead of 120 meters as required. Okay, Lynn, would you please summarize the application, notification requirements, and submission requirements, outlining staff, agency comments, and recommendations, as well as public comments for those who could not attend?
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met, and no comments or concerns were received.
Okay, thank you. Courtney, would you please have the owner applicant join the panelists to present your application and put up an appropriate sketch or drawing?
Hello.
Yes.
No, Jeff Buseman from Van Harten Surveying, representing the property owner. This application, I don't know if you could zoom in on the screen at all to focus more on the property. This is an approved severance. You can see in the top right-hand corner of 0.4 of a hectare of a parcel. There's 2 minor variances being requested. One is to the barn. The barn is empty and has been empty for decades. Upstairs is just storage. Downstairs are old pens, but in very extremely bad shape, and a workshop. So the request here is to have a minimum distance separation of 87 meters versus 137. That 137 was a number developed by county planning staff as to what the minimum might be there. The second request is for a minor variance for the frontage on the retained parcel, where you can see the big A. And we're requesting 115 meters instead of 120. Initially, we had this severance set up a little bit differently, that you can see the severance is 60 by 60 meters wide by 67 meters deep. Initially, we had it a little more narrower and deeper, but we've moved it a little bit and made it the rear limit come to the front more a bit because of the wetland. The wetland was flagged and a survey was done of that, and we determined that this is a better configuration to honor the 30-meter buffer to the wetland. By doing that, we had to make the severance just a touch wider, and that's why we're having this variance on the retained parcel. This parcel is relatively small. The minimum of 120 meters applies when the property is 4 hectares or greater. This retained parcel is 4.4, so we're just into that next tier to have 120 meter minimum. Otherwise, the minimum of the parcel is 25 meters. Reading planning of staff's opinion, they're supportive, and we feel that the 4 tests for minor variance are met. Be happy to answer any questions or if there's any comments.
Thank you, Jeff. Lynn, are there any registrants who have requested to speak?
No, Mr. Chair, I have not received any.
Courtney, are there any members of any audience who would like to provide comments or ask questions?
I'll ask any attendees to use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to make any comments. Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands being raised.
Thank you. Let's turn it over to the committee. Deep, any questions, comments?
Jeff, that barn, is that decommissioned or is it still active barn?
No, it's interesting. Upstairs, they got hillside storage stuff in upstairs. The downstairs, they have a workshop. And then the other part of the downstairs was a sheep barn at some point in time. I'm going to say decades ago.
So-
Some pretty cool stuff is there.
So when you say workshop, what are they doing in there?
Oh, your handyman workshop, like a little bit of carpentry tools,
Oh,
Not-
okay,
but no business or anything like that.
okay, thank you.
Dan?
Jeff, the only question I had, and I'm sorry, I missed your comment there about the barn. I only caught half of it, but I was just wondering, is there a plan to tear out the stalls or whatever there is in there for animal storage?
There's no specific plan right now. They lived there quite a while already with this situation. If anything, they said to me, in a dream world, maybe we'll have some horses, but there really is no plan at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I really don't have any questions. I just have a comment. We went through this before when we were reviewing it for comments to the county, and we looked at the minimum distance separations at that time, and we all seem to be satisfied at that time. So let's go through the decision document, and again, I'll say we either approve it, we oppose it, or defer it. Deferring means it comes back to the committee at a later date before.
Mr. Chair, I believe Dennis is on the line as well.
Okay, he didn't see this one here, so I don't think it's fair for us to ask him to vote.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll go through this, just three of us, and then we'll draw him in at that time. Thank you very much for reminding me, Pete. Okay, so in the matter of Section 45 Planning Act as amended, the new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2010 as amended, an application for a minor variance requesting relief to permit a reduced separation distance type 1 of 87 meters instead of 137 meters as required, and 2, a reduced frontage of 115 meters instead of 120 meters as required. So Deep,
approve.
Dan?
I approve.
I approve as well. Thank you. So we've finished the minor variances. I don't see any other matters, and I need a mover to adjourn the meeting at 7:22.
Mr. Chair, may I interrupt for a moment? We still
ma'am.
have the minor variance for Lander.
Oh, I'm
Malcolm Lander.
sorry, you're correct. I'm sorry, I missed that. No, I was too keen. Okay, sorry. 6C minor variance application D13/LAN, Malcolm Lander. So we can have Dennis join us for this one. Dennis, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Dennis, you're present here, and we're down to 6C of the minor variance application.
Yes, I've been following along.
Okay, so we'll do that, and we'll draw you into the discussion. Minor variance application D13 LAN, Malcolm Lander, 2 Hemlock Crescent, PV Lot 53, Plan 61 M-203, Township of Buslinch, requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw, that's 23/2018, as amended from section 14, site-specific special provisions number SB 86. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from section 14.0, site-specific special provision number SB 86 to permit a reduced side lot setback of 0.4 meters instead of 1.2 meters as required. Now, I understand that the applicant is requesting that this item be deferred. Is that still correct, Lynn?
Yes, it is. And Sean Sawitsky is here. He can request the referral to the committee.
Okay, let's put on Sean. Hi, Sean, you're muted. Just wonder if you can just. There
we go.
Very good.
Great. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Yes, sir. So that was correct. We were asking to defer it. We're going to be amending the plans just because of the comments we received from the chief building official about the how close we are to the property line. We're going to amend the plans a little bit so that we can have some glass on the side wall. So that was just not prepared in time for us to have it ready for this meeting. So we're going to defer to the next one.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. So rather than
you.
going through the rigmarole of the presentation, everything, what I'm going to suggest is we go straight into the matter and have a vote in the matter of Section 45 Planning Act as amended and new and a zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended, an application for minor variance requesting relief to permit a reduced side yard setback of 0.4 meters instead of 1.2 meters as required. So it's either approved, opposed, or deferred. And since we didn't see the presentation, I don't think approved is the appropriate item to consider. So let's go around the table. Dennis?
Defer.
Okay, Deep?
Deferred.
Dan?
Defer.
And I defer as well. Okay, thank you very much. Sean?
Have a great, thank you very much. We'll see you next month.
All right, so.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Lynn, I think we're good now. So we have no other matters, and next time is the German Committee of Adjustment, and I have 7:26 p.m. to have a mover to adjourn the meeting at 7:26 p.m.
I'll move.
Dan, second by Deep. All in favor? Dennis?
Approve.
Deep? Deep? You're muted, Deep.
Sorry, approved.
Okay, and Dan?
Approve.
I approve as well. Thank you very much for this item, and let's get into the next item, which is the Planning and Development Advisory Committee. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have 9 service applications to provide comments to the county. We have 1 property standards appeal, which we're rendering decision. So we'll do a roll call for all those in attendance. Dennis?
Present.
Deep?
Present.
Dan?
Present.
And I, John Spools, I'm present as well. And Lynn, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
No, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay, so let's move into the approval of the minutes. Do I have a mover and a seconder for approving of the minutes of July 13th, 2021?
I'll move.
Moved by Dennis, second by Dan. Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Dennis?
Approve.
Deep?
Approved.
Dan?
Approved.
And I approve as well. We have no application of site plan urban review. We have no zoning bylaw amendment. Move to item number 8, land division. Before we have 9 here. So I reiterate that our mandate is to provide comments only to the county's land division committee when it considers any of these service applications for approval. And there's members of the public would like to give comments or questions regarding the application. Please note that you can hear them at the provide them at the land division committee. So let's start with the first one. Severance application, I'd say A, severance application B39-21, also known as D10-CUL. Stewart and Karen Cullen, Part Lot 18, Concession 1, municipally known as 6944, Concession 1000 Puslage. Proposed severance application. Proposed severance is 0.4 hectares with 61.69 meter frontage. Vacant land proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel is 37.69 hectares with 147.78 meter frontage. Existing proposed rural residential hobby farm with existing dwelling and barn. Okay, so would our clerk, Courtney Hortfox, please have the application, have the applicant or agent join the panelists that present the application, and please put up an appropriate drawing for us.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Do you want me to start?
Yes, please do. Yes. I was waiting for you to see if you
Sorry.
got everything organized the way you want to. Please go ahead.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Nancy Shoemaker, planning consultant for the applicants. Committee members will recall that we were before the committee in July for the minor variance dealing with MDS setback, and at that time the committee approved. So we're back this evening for support of the consent application. The property is designated secondary agricultural. The consent itself meets the 0.4 minimum lot size. There's access on a public road. It is compatible with the uses in the area, subject to that MDS minor variance. We're well removed from the settlement area boundary, and the property owners have owned this property for more than 5 years. So we're hoping, we've been very careful about locating that severance away from the natural heritage features that GRCA and the county have identified on their mapping. And so we're hoping the committee will now support the consent application. I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay. So let's go around the table. Dennis, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think we covered this in the previous MDS.
Very good. Deep? Deep, you're muted.
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I guess Paul's not here yet, so we'll move to Dan.
I'm fine with this.
Okay, and I'll ask Lynn, do we have any township comments that you wish to incorporate?
No, the comments I did receive from both fire and public works were that neither one of them had any concerns.
Okay, and the usual tax stuff, do we have to indicate that as well?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do. We also have the second one. We've changed the wording a little bit regarding the entrance permits. The wording now is that safe access to the severed lands can be accommodated to the satisfaction of the township, and that the township will file with Secretary Treasurer of Planning and Land Division letter of clearance of this condition.
Okay, so my suggestion is to add the item that committee supports the severance application as well as the comments made by Lynn. So may I have a mover and a seconder, and if you have any further comments, please indicate them as I go around the table. So may I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Dan? Deep, move, second?
I'll second. Yep.
Okay, so let's go around the table. Deep?
Approved.
Dan?
Approve.
Dennis?
Approve.
I approve as well. Okay, let's move into the next item, 8B, severance application, B50-21, and also known as D10-SLA. Abigail and Lee Slater, part lot 7, 8, and 9, concession 10, misspelled known as 711 Arco Road, Township of Puslinch. Proposed severance is 60-meter frontage by 135 meters or 28 hectares, vacant land, proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel 41.8 hectares with 280-meter frontage, existing proposed rural residential use with existing 3 dwellings, storage building, and shed. Okay, Lynn, were there any agency comments received?
So, Mr. Chair, we did not receive any.
Okay, and were there any written comments received?
The only comments we received were from township departments, both fire and public works, and both of those departments had no concerns again.
Okay, very good. Would our clerk Courtney please have the agent applicant join the panelists to present the application and provide a suitable drawing or plan?
Okay, good morning or good evening. It's not morning anymore. It's Rod Finney here, and I'm representing the Slaters. This is a proposed 0.8 hectare proposed residential severance, as you've already indicated. The Slaters, the land is secondary agriculture. The family has owned it for more than 5 years. There have been no severances since March 1st of 2005. There was one building on the property that had been used as a barn previously, but it is now just used for storage and is no longer used to house animals. The county reviewed the entrance. Originally, our clients were hoping to get the severance off the west or the easterly corner of the property, front easterly corner. Excuse me, but the line of sight was not good. We had the county review the line of sight, and they suggested that it would be appropriate at the westerly corner. Next door to us is the Starkey Hill Conservation Authority, and across the road is the Guelph Wellfield. I don't believe that this residential use will have a negative impact on any of our neighbors. There are a lot of residential uses in the immediate area, particularly behind our property. You can see there's a number of smaller lots that are back there. So if there's any questions or concerns, I'd be glad to help.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to the committee members. Dennis, questions?
Yeah, just referring to the barn, ex-barn is now a storage shed. Has it been modified so that there's no livestock holding structures anymore?
That's correct. There are no livestock holding structures inside the barn. I'm sorry, I guess I should have included, we did take some pictures of the inside of it. You could see it's so clean you could almost eat off the floor.
Okay, so a building permit would be needed to add livestock anyway. So, okay,
Yes.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Deep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is safe entrance is possible?
I'm sorry.
Safe entrance is possible?
A safe entrance is possible? Yes, it is. We had the county review it and they said it would be all acceptable at that corner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had the same comment as Deep about the safe access. When I reviewed the site, I was a bit concerned about it, but if the roads department is okay, I'm fine.
Okay, I have a couple questions. The barn is in pristine conditions that can house animals. I believe MDS calculation should be provided, assuming the worst case situation. So I'm going to suggest that that be a condition of the severance, that the MDS calculations be provided, and if it comes back here and it doesn't conform, they'll have to come back here for a minor variance. The second question I've got, you indicate there's 3 dwellings on the property. Are they all inhabited?
Yes, they are. Not all permanently all the time, but they are all inhabited. They're all historical buildings. They've been on the property since about the 1860s, 1870s. And the barn itself, that is the barn that they're talking about, is a heritage structure. It's a stone barn. It's quite attractive. They've finished off the inside quite nicely. I don't think it would be something that people would ever want to put animals in, but if you're concerned about it, we will look at that.
Okay, I have a question of Joanna Salzberg. What is our bylaw with respect to dwellings on the property in this particular case? Number of dwellings on the property?
Through the chair, for the number of dwellings on a property in the agricultural zone, they are limited to 1. However, one suggested condition that PDAC may consider is to ensure that either the 3 dwellings are in compliance with the zoning bylaw or that they can demonstrate that they are in compliance. As Mr. Finney has indicated, they've been on the property for a long time, but in terms of demonstrating that they are legally established on the property, that may be something that PDAC considers as a condition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any further comments from the members before I suggest some recommended comments to the county? Dennis?
I'm good.
Deep?
I'm good, thank you.
Dan?
Hey, I'm good.
Okay, so I guess I would like to suggest we say we support the application principle. However, if the barn is in usable condition, then MDS1 calculations will be required. And a minor variance, if it does not conform, the minor variance will be required. Secondly, the fact that there's 3 dwellings on the property, I think we should be requesting that the severance be subject to confirmation that the dwellings conform to the zoning requirements. In other words, to comply with the zoning. So those are my 3 suggestions. Any comments on those 3, Dennis?
No, I agree with those, John.
Steve?
I agree as well.
Dan?
Same, I agree. Good.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll have a mover and a seconder for those 3 comments. Mover?
I'll move.
Dennis moves, seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay, Deep seconds it. Okay, all in favor? Dennis?
Approve.
Deep?
Approve.
Dennis? Oh, sorry, Dan?
Approve.
And I approve as well. Thank you.
You.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Severance application B51-21, also known as D10-DAG, Don and Donald Doggett, Part Lot 21, Concession 1, municipally known as 4189 Side Road 20 South, Township of Puslinch. Proposed severance is 0.4 hectares for 65-meter frontage, vacant land for proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel is 4.2 hectares with 57-meter frontage. Existing proposed rural residential use for the existing dwelling, garage, and pool. Okay, Clerk Courtney Hartfox, please have the agent or applicant join the panelist and provide the appropriate drawing.
Jeff Buseman here from Van Herten Surveying, presenting this severance application. This is a severance in the secondary ag area. People have owned the property for more than 5 years. No severance since March 2005. It's well away from environmental lands. The only odd thing, peculiar thing about it is the configuration, that if you stand at the road and face the property, the back right-hand corner, we're proposing a jog in this parcel. While on site with the property owners, we looked at a variety of ways to do this, to make this, try to square it up, but what would be most appropriate. But after a lot of deliberation and thought, I felt like this was the best configuration because of the nature of the land. There's a clump of trees there and in a hill. It just seemed inappropriate to try to put that limit kind of in the middle of that bush, or that where it could have ended up if we squared things off. I would fear that that chunk of bush could be, the new owner could knock some of that down. I felt like it would be a shame. And the lay of the land, the way the land is, no one's going to build in that back corner anyways. So I know it's a little peculiar, but I think it's a good configuration in light of the topography. And when I look at the criteria to consider in the OP for severance creation, one is to consider the topography. So I feel it's a good configuration. One small detail, there's a hydro line that goes through the severance. That hydro line will be used for the new severed lot, and a new hydro service will be provided for the house on the retained parcel. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments that the committee may have.
Okay, Lynn, were there any agency comments received?
The only comments I received were from our fire department and public works, and both had no concerns.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, then let's go around to the committee members. Start with you, Dennis.
Yeah, just wondering, Jeff, if it could be squared off and just made a little bit deeper in there for a severance and still keep a more squared lot and not have still deal with your bush comment.
It could be. I pushed hard first for that idea, but after looking at it long and hard and being there, I don't know if you had a chance to visit the property. What I'm afraid is we're going to get really close to that driveway, and I just, we could look at it if the committee suggests consider it, we'll consider it. But I do, after a lot of thought, I thought this is the better way to do it, and I appreciate your opinion on it too, though.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I'm good, John.
Okay, Deep,
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Dan,
I agree, considering the topography here, I'm fine with this.
okay. Jeff, I assume there'll be you'll need a minor variance for the retained piece.
Yes. We're just over 4 hectares. Yes, we will. The retained will need a minor variance.
Okay, and removal of hydro line, will that be removed or
I would ask that you don't put that as a condition, because I don't want to remove the hydro before the severance is created, because the hydro services the house now.
well, as a condition of the severance, the removal of the hydro?
The problem is, if we do that, that means technically we got to remove the hydro, then the severance can be created and finalized, then it can be sold. So that would mean then the future owner, the owner of the retained house would be without power. I guess unless we hang on, I take that back. That would mean a rerouting of that hydro prior to the severance. Yeah, that could be done. That could be done. I apologize. It could be done.
Okay, fair enough. So I'd like to discuss with the committee members, the issue of, do we ask for a squaring off, or do we go around the copse of trees? So Dennis, you suggested we should square it off. I was wondering, Deep, do you have an opinion?
I think I'm okay with the way it is, the way Jeff did it.
Okay,
My only concern was with the hydro easement. I think that may be a bigger issue than the lot.
okay, fair enough. And Dan, you indicated you're okay with the configuration and not trying to square it off?
Yeah, I'm fine with it the way it is.
Okay, Dennis, I think we'll just leave it the way it is then.
I'm good with that.
Okay, fair enough. So Lynn, do you have any conditions you want to add as well?
Mr. Chair, I have our 2 standard, plus that the owner receive zoning conformity for the retained parcel to permit the reduced frontage. And did you want to add the condition regarding the hydro pole being rerouted?
I'd like to condition that removal of the hydro line.
Very good. I will add that condition.
Okay, and so my suggestion is to we move that we support the severance with the conditions that we just discussed with Lynn, i.e. the removal of the hydro line, the minor variance for the retained piece. So I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. So let's get a mover.
I can move.
Dan, second.
I'll move it.
Deep. So all in favor?
I'll
Dennis?
second it.
Thanks, Deep. All in favor, Dennis?
Approve.
Deep,
Approved.
Deep, Dan?
Approve.
And I approve as well. Okay, let's move into the next one, a D severance application B52-21, also known as D10-DRA, Michael and George Gray, Part Lot 7, Concession 1, municipally known as 655 Concession 2, Township of Puslinch. Proposed severance is 1 hectare with 62-meter frontage, existing and proposed agricultural, existing shed and barn for proposed rural residential use, shed and barn to be removed, Retained parcels 9.9 hectares with 15-meter frontage, existing proposed agriculture use with dwelling and pool. So, Courtney, clerk, would you please have the agent or applicant join the panelists and provide a suitable drawing or plan?
Yeah, Jeff Buseman here again. I got 7 in a row here, so just to stay on. These are long, narrow properties from Concession 2 Road. And maybe you could zoom in a little bit more at the top part of the yeah, that's great. That's great there. So this is a long, big property. The idea is that I'm going to say, how is it shaped? It's flag shaped now, but we're suggesting that the frontage for the retained parcel become quite narrow, about 15 meters wide. And that the existing driveway will remain in that 15-meter strip. It functions just fine now, that driveway. We don't have to build a new one, so there's plenty of room for that driveway. And the house is way, way, way in the back, and that will continue to operate that way. The idea is to have a severance in the front there. There's an old shed and an old barn, both in really, really rough shape. And so they will be removed. And the idea is for a new house in that severance there. It meets the main fundamental rules of secondary ag, 5-year ownership, safe entrance, and that in fact that no severance since 2005. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks. Lynn, were there any agency comments received?
Mr. Chair, the only comments, once again, we received were from Fire and Public Works, and both departments had no concerns.
Okay, fair enough. So let's turn it over to the committee. So Dennis, you got the floor.
Okay, I'm good. Other than, do we need to put something in to, as part of the conditions that the barns be removed? I know they say they're going to be removed, but should we be putting that in as a condition?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, that was my only comment.
Okay, Deep.
I'm good with this.
Okay, Dan.
I agree with Dennis's comment about the barns about being removed. But Jeff, question on the lot to the right, number 6667, there's a barn down there. Is that distance of any concern, or I don't even know what that barn's being used for?
The one that shows 235 meters?
Yes, is that?
Oh, testing my memory. I don't know offhand. I don't believe we got the MDS data for that sheet, so I would say we're going to have an MDS condition to deal with that.
Okay.
Through the chair, I can jump in here for a second.
Sure,
So
thank you
no-
very much. Go ahead.
yeah, no problem. So MDS conditions are the county reviews MDS as part of these severances at land division. We haven't received a farm data sheet for that barn yet, but it will be something that we review that goes before land division, and conditions related to MDS will be the county's conditions to clear as well. So that will be something that's reviewed at land division.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, Dan?
No, that's it for me.
Okay, I have a question. There's a hydro line showing that goes to that barn. Is that an active hydro line?
I forget. I don't remember. It doesn't serve the house. I know that. I think it goes to the barn, whether it's active or not. I don't even know if I even looked at that. I'm going to say I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so is that a concern on the severance?
I would say not in my opinion. I mean, if they can use the service for a future house, that's wonderful. If anything, when that barn is demolished, when you demolish anything, you're going to have utility cut off services anyways. So in terms of a safety thing, Hydra would be asked to come and disconnect it first anyways.
Fair enough, thank you. All right, so I guess, Jeff, there will also be a minor variance for the retained.
Yes.
Okay, so so my suggestion is the committee supports the application. Oh, sorry, Lynn, I forgot you again. Lynn, you have any comments?
I know we can have our standard 2 conditions, including to include a 3rd condition that they achieve zoning conformity for the retained parcel for the reduced lot frontage, and also a condition that the barn be removed from that parcel.
Okay, that sounds good. So everybody fine with those 3 conditions? Dennis?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Ben? Okay, so let's get a mover and a seconder.
I'll move.
Okay, moved by, I couldn't see you, sorry, who's that moving? Dennis?
Dennis.
Okay, Dennis, and second by,
I'll second it.
okay, a second by Deep, so let's go around the table. Dennis,
Approve.
Deep,
Approved.
Ben,
Approve.
and I approve as well. Okay, let's go on to the next one, 8E, 7th application B53-21, also known as D10-DRE, Devinder and Sukhbir Grewal, Part Lot 16, Concession 7, municipally known as 130 Maltby Road West, Township of Puslinch, proposed 60-meter frontage by 122 meters or 73.73 hectares, existing and proposed rural residential use with dwelling under construction. Retained parcel is 8.9 hectares with 94-meter frontage, existing proposed bush/reforested trees. Okay, will Clerk Courtney please have the agent applicant join the panelists and put forward an appropriate drawing.
Thank you, Courtney and committee members. This is a parcel on Maltby Road. So City of Guelph is on the north side of Maltby Road at this point. There's a house under construction on this property. You can see that we presented as such, dwelling under construction. The proposal is to sever that existing house, almost identical configuration to the parcel that's identified with the big circle number 2. And also number 120 there. The parcel is 60 by 122. Again, all the criteria of secondary agriculture, no severances since 2005, and the person has owned it for more than 5 years. All these conditions have been met. You can see we have a spot for proposed entrance that's already been identified. Out of interest, a road winding was taken from the front of this property already, so there's no need for a road winding, which is often the requirement that the City of Guelph will make on applications that are on the joint roads like Maltby. Otherwise, everything's pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments?
Okay, Lynn, were there any agency comments received or public comments?
Mr. Chair, the only comments again we received were from the fire department and from Public Works, and both had no concerns.
Okay, let's turn it over to committee. Dennis?
I'm good.
Okay, Deep?
I'm good.
Dan?
I'm fine with this.
I'm fine with this. I just have an interest question. Why is the construction going ahead of the severance?
The property doesn't have any houses on it. This is the first house on the property. So the retained lands are vacant. So it would have been like, it was, you know, they
Oh, I see. Okay, I understand. Okay, I got you. Okay, I understand. Fair
Yep.
enough. Okay, I guess we'll need a minor variance for the frontage.
Yep.
Okay. So my suggestion is that we support this severance application with the condition that the minor variance for the frontage of the retained parcel be addressed. And Lynn, do you have any other comments?
Other than that, no, Mr. Chair, just our standard 2.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder to add the minor variance requirement for the retained parcel and also the two conditions that have been asked, the standards. Excuse me. So I mean, I have a mover.
Dennis here, I'll move.
Okay.
I'll
Second,
second.
Dan, all in favor? Dennis,
In favor?
Deep,
In favor?
Dan,
In favor.
and I'm in favor as well. Okay, let's move on to the next one, 8F. Service application B54-21, also known as D10 GOD, Krista and Paula Goodino. Part lot 15, concession free, municipally known as 6862 Wellington Road 34, Township of Pussons. Proposed severance is 15-meter frontage by 110 meters for 0.56 hectares. Vacant land for proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel is 3.4 hectares with 72-meter frontage. The existing proposed rural residential use with existing dwelling, garage, shed, and barn to be removed. Okay, I guess you're there, Jeff. Courtney, would you please put up appropriate drawing and have, we'll allow Jeff to start once the drawing comes up.
Thank you. This property is on the north side of County Road 34, just west of 35. The proposal is for severance on the front left corner. With this severance, the barns that are there would never be able to meet MDS. So they plan to actually remove these little buildings. And I'm going to call it a cute hobby farm with a bunch of unique little animals in these barns. And so the idea is that they'll build a new barn much further back in the lot later on, and to be able to continue this small hobby farm type of operation. Otherwise, a safe entrance is available on the front left there. It's 0.56 of a hectare. It's a little bit bigger. There's a bit of a slope at the back of the property, so it rises as you go further back. And we wanted to go a little further back, so we had the opportunity to build the house sort of on the hill, more in the higher part, the rear part of the property. We don't need a minor variance for the retained parcel on this one, because we are under 4 hectares for the retained. Be happy to answer any questions or comments you have.
Okay, Lynn, did we receive any written comments from either the agency, our staff, or public?
Mr. Chair, the only comments we received again were from Fire and Public Works, and they had no concerns.
Okay, thank you. So let's go around the table. Dennis?
Yeah, be the same comment. Do we need to put something or suggest that there's a condition to remove the barns?
Sure, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that's the only one I,
Great.
thanks.
Deep?
Yeah, I had the same concern as well.
Okay, Dan?
I agree with Dennis's comment.
Okay, and I agree as well. So Lynn, could you just read the conditions that you have?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. We have the standard 2 regarding the township's clearance fee and safe access. And then a condition that the barn located on the retained parcel be removed to the satisfaction of the township, and that the township file with the Secretary Treasurer of the Planning and Land Division Committee a letter of clearance of this condition. Also, did you want a condition added about confirmation that the MDS2 for the new barn to be located on the retained lands is 173 meters to the rear of the lands to be severed, or?
I would think that would come separately if they're going to construct it separately. So I don't think it's required at this time. They'll apply they will be applying separately to construct a barn. So I would assume that they would need all the applications at that time.
Okay, very good. So it'll be just the 3 conditions then.
Okay, fair enough. So need a mover and a seconder.
I'll move it.
Okay, Deep moves it, and second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Dan seconds it.
Yeah.
So let's go around the table. Dennis,
Approve.
Deep,
Approved.
Dan,
Approve.
I approve as well. Okay, next one, service application B 55-21, also known as D10 HAM, Peggy Hamley, part lot 20, concession 2, municipally known as 4428 Side Road 20 North, Township of Puslinch. Proposed severance is 0.41 hectares with 25.1 year frontage. Existing proposed rural residential use, existing shed to be removed. Okay, Jeff, would you start once Lynn
Sure.
provides you drawing?
So this, just one second here. This parcel is on Side Road 20 north, on the north side of the 401, but it's south of County Road 34. So not too far south from here is where Side Road 20 ends because of the dead ends because of the 401. This is a great little infill property. I've actually done some, I usually don't survey ahead of time, but in this case, we did some surveying ahead of time to ensure that we can meet a number of things. One of the things was we had to have the client actually dig up the well, making sure that the new property line is clear of that well. We also nailed down the position of the house, of the existing house. The only thing that's going to have to change a little bit is the driveway for the retained house will have to be straightened out a bit so that we can have a 25-meter frontage for the severed parcel. So the severed parcel and the retained parcel both meet all the requirements for zoning. The other thing is in consideration of MDS, there's a really old barn on the retained parcel that will be removed if it hasn't been so already, but it will be removed. There is a barn up to the north on the right there. We evaluated MDS and we found that it clears MDS for that barn up on the top right. Then I know we've been involved in a couple severances on this road recently, one further to the south across the road, one way, and a couple at the north end of this road, just before County Road 34. So it fits in with the nature of this, this street. Be happy to answer any questions or comments you might have.
Okay, Lynn, did we receive any written comments from staff or from public?
Mr. Chair, we received comments from the fire department and public works, and both departments had no concerns.
Very good. Let's get on with going around the committee members. Dennis.
Be the same comment, just so we put a condition or on the barns to be tore down.
So the barn and the shed to be removed.
Yeah, yeah, they already have it. They're going to do it, but we should just make sure it's part of the condition.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, Deep.
What about the driveway that's to be located? Do we need to put that in or no?
Sure, we can put that in as well, that the driveway serving the retained parcel be relocated off the 7th.
Thank you.
Okay, Dan?
I agree with the two comments.
Very good. So Lynn, would you summarize the comments you got, and we can proceed with voting on them?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the standard 2 comments regarding payment of the township's clearance fee and safe access. And other condition is that the shed located on the severed parcel and the small horse barn located on the retained parcel both be removed to the satisfaction of the township. And then the 4th condition is that the driveway serving the retained land be relocated.
Fair enough. Okay, so a mover and a seconder.
I'll move.
Moved by Dennis, second by,
I'll second it.
okay, Deep. Let's go around the table. Dennis,
Approve.
Deep,
Approve.
okay, Dan,
Approve.
and I approve as well. Okay, next one, 8H, 7th application B 56-21, also known as D10-QBF, QB Farms Inc., care of Patrick Quirk and Chase Burkett. Part lot 17, concession 9, municipally known as 4555 Victoria Road South, Township of Puslinch. Proposed severance is 50-meter frontage by 150 meters or 0.75 hectares. Existing agriculture for proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel is 40.2 hectares with 357-meter frontage. Existing proposed agriculture use for the existing dwelling, sheds and cell tower. Okay, Jeff, can you please start once Courtney puts up the appropriate drawing?
Thank you. So this property is on Victoria Road, south let me think, just north of 34. It's for the proposal of severance in the front right corner when you face it from the road. This property is a little deeper than probably typical. I think partly to just get away from Victoria Road itself a bit. It's a fairly busy road, but it's pretty straightforward severance, and it meets all the tests of 5-year ownership and secondary ag and so forth. You can see, in fact, this is the first severance from this original, what we call 100-acre parcel. I did not see any barns of concern. A little bit, just to let you know of context, a little bit further south and across the road is the one rural estate subdivision that had went up over the last, say, 10, 15 years. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Hey, Lynn, were there any township or agent comments received or public comments received?
Mr. Chair, the only comments we received again were from the fire department and our building department excuse me, the Public Works Department, and both had no concerns with this application.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's turn it over to the committee members. Dennis.
No comment. I'm good.
Steve,
I'm good with this.
Dan,
I had just made a note here, and I'm trying to remember this one in my mind when I drove by, but I seem to be questioning the safe access on this one.
If I can address that, I did check it. I did test it. I always test it. The Pusson's Road Superintendent normally by this time would contact me if there was an issue. In fact, I'm not going to say for sure. If I'm ever questionable, I contact the road super to check for me, and I believe that he did. But I'm sure if it's an issue, he'll identify it.
Okay, I'll just make it as a comment.
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. We can do that as well. Safe entrance available. All right, I don't have any other comments. So Lynn, could you go through the comments you have that we want to pass on in addition to supporting it?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, we have our standard 2 comments regarding the payment of the township consent review and clearance fee. And the second one, that safe access to the several lands can be accommodated to the satisfaction of the township.
Okay, sorry, did you mention the safe entrance in there as well?
Yeah, that's the safe access.
Okay, safe access, okay, fair enough. Okay, so get a mover and a seconder for those comments to be passed on to the county. Moved by Dan, second by Deep. Okay, let's go around the table. All in favor? Dennis,
In favor?
Deep,
In favor.
Dan?
In favor.
And I'm in favor as well. Okay, the next one is 7th application B59-21, also known as D10-GER, Mario and Elisa Jeremia, part lot 20, concession 4, municipally known as 4620, Side Road 20 North, Township of Pusson's. Proposed 7th application is 50-meter frontage by 90 meters or 0.5 hectares, vacant land, proposed rural residential use. Retained parcel is 3.02 hectares with 106-meter frontage, existing and proposed rural residential use for the existing dwelling. Okay, Jeff, once Courtney puts up the appropriate drawing, may proceed.
Okay, this is at the corner of concession 4 and Side Road 20 North. Severance facing it from concession 4 road. It's severance at the front left-hand corner for an area of 0.45 hectares. We were with the committee not that long ago. You can see to the left of the one that we have there that was an approved severance. That severance has not been finalized yet at 7,004 there. And a couple of years ago, we did another severance, another one that shows as part 1, 61R21559, house under construction. So this area has got a number of homes of rural residential homes. And these, it's been segmented, and this is just another one that kind of fits in quite well. We do have to apply for minor variance for MDS for the barn to the rear. There's a barn there. There's a number of houses closer. When there's 4 or more houses closer, then the minimum distance is the distance to that 4th house. I think we have 3 that are closer, so we're awfully close to that minimum. So I think a minor variance for that would be reasonable. Be happy to answer any questions or comments the committee might have.
Okay, let's go. Lynn, were any comments received from the county or agency staff?
Mr. Chair, the only comments we received were from the fire department and public works again, and both had no concerns.
Very good. Okay, let's go around the table. Dennis?
No, I'm good as long as we have to have the minor variance for the MDS. We can deal with it then. So I'm good.
Okay. Deep?
Jeff, safe access is good?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I did check that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, I just have the same comment on the safe entrance, but I think you have approval on that, don't you, Joe?
Yeah, I did check, made sure. You wouldn't see these if we didn't have a safe entrance.
Okay, all right, that's it for me.
Okay, fair enough. So, Lynn, would you read out what you got in way of comments as well as supporting this application?
Certainly. So our standard 2 comments that the owner satisfied the requirements of the township regarding its consent review and condition clearance fee. The second one, that safe access to the severed lines can be accommodated to the satisfaction of the township. And the third will be that the owner achieves zoning conformity for reduced NBS setbacks for the severed parcel.
Okay, fair enough. So let's get a mover and a seconder for this.
I'll move.
Moved by Dennis, second by Dan. Okay, all in favor? Dennis?
In favor?
Deep?
In favor.
Dan?
In favor.
And I'm in favor as well. Okay, so that concludes the land division items. We'll move into a new item for this committee under other matters, property standards appeal for 171 Town Line Road, Bussens Concession Gore, Part Lot 1, RP 61 R4597 Part 1, RP 61 R5236 Part 1, RP 61 R11591 Part 1. So the purpose of this is we're acting as a proper standards committee, and we are considering the appeal that I did of the order to comply issued by the township's enforcement staff pursuant to the Township of Bussens Property Standards Bylaw 2020-010, the Building Code Act, and Statutory Powers Act. So I mentioned the property. So Courtney is the appellant here.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have both the appellant and our bylaw enforcement officer here.
Okay, I don't see him on the screen, so.
Oh, sorry. I'm just moving him over now.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so let's introduce ourselves to the everybody here. My name is John Sapoulos. I'm the counsel and chair of this committee. On the committee, we have Deep Bassi, Dan Kennedy, and Dennis O'Connor. Dennis, I don't know if I can see you here. Are you still with us?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay, there you go. Okay, fair enough. And I'd like to introduce the other people present. Ivan Lindensky, Bylaw Enforcement Officer, Township of Bussens, Lynn Banks, Development and Legislative Coordinator, Jeff Bunn, Deputy Clerk, Courtney Hoyt Fox, Municipal Clerk. So I'd like to ask the appellant to introduce themselves. That would be you, Brian.
Yeah, hi. Thanks to the committee for hearing the appeal. My name is Brian Pearson. I'm one of the owners at 171 Town Line Road.
Okay, fair enough. So this is a formal process, and we'll be asking both the bylaw officer and the appellant to be sworn in before they do so. And I'd like to keep this as casual as possible. So what we intend to do is have the bylaw officer sworn in first, give his evidence, and then once it's finished, the committee members and the appellant may question the evidence of the property standards officer. The appellant will have 10 minutes to ask questions if they want the time. And then the appellant will be sworn in and given the opportunity to give evidence, following which he can be questioned by representatives of the township and the committee members. And again, the representative of the township will ask him to keep to 10 minutes. And then we'll hear a summation from both sides. In other words, both the bylaw officer and the appellant will be able to summarize them. And then we will retire in closed session and discuss it amongst ourselves and render a decision. So we have the authority to do one of four things when we go into closed session. We can confirm the order as it currently stands, rescind the order, modify the order, grant an extension of time to comply with the order. Okay, so let's get on with the process. Then would you please swear in the property standards officer?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Ivan excuse me, let's try this again. Ivan Lunevsky, do you swear or solemnly affirm that the evidence that you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Swear.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ivan, so would you give your testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Ivan Lunevsky, and I'm the Bylaw Enforcement and Property Standards Officer for the Township of Buslinch, and have been so for the past year. The reason why we're here, as you mentioned today, is regarding a property standards appeal for 171 Town Line Road. In the agenda package, you may find a written testimony from the property standards officer, as well as some documentation and evidence pertaining to the orders and the appeal. So to begin with, the township received some complaints in regard to the exterior maintenance of the property, as well as some noise concerns. So the complaints were mostly concerned with the unsightly nature of the property, that it seems out of character with the surrounding environment. Staff attended on the property on June the 10th. I met myself with Brian Pearson when I investigated the property, as well as one of the other property owners. And we took some pictures of the current state of the property. So during the inspection, what I observed was that the property section area in the northern portion of the property, closer to the road, had a clearing, a parking area where, sorry, not a parking area, but a clearing area where there's outside storage of metal racks, piping, scaffolding, as well as accumulation of waste materials. There was some forklifts on the property, as well as shipping containers, and everything to some how the property appeared in a state of unsightly and unsafe condition, as defined in the property standards bylaw. So when we assess unsightly condition of the property, we usually compare the property with its surroundings, and sometimes certain properties might be shielded from the road. So essentially, unless you are physically on the property, you cannot see the state of the property. But the properties surrounding this property have been quite clear and maintained in a neat and tidy condition. So this specific property that we investigated seemed to detract from the general landscape and the other surrounding properties. So to begin with, we issued a property standards order on June the 23rd, and the property standards order you could find as attachment number 1. So in the property standards order, we asked that as item number 1, the accumulation of machinery, materials, and objects or parts of the objects, including but not limited to scaffolding, racks, forklifts, metal racks, and etc., causing an unsightly and unsafe condition on the property is either A, removed with all the machinery, materials, and objects from the exterior, or ensure that all machinery, materials, or objects are stored within a structure and all exterior properties maintained in a neat and tidy condition. And the other items included the removal of accumulated waste, as well as some dead and decayed trees. So we did receive an appeal, and the appeal was received, I believe, on July the 8th. And in his appeal, Mr. Pearson requested clarification on what is deemed and considered a structure as defined in the property standards bylaw. What he advised is that Section 4.1G of the bylaw does not require materials to be enclosed within a structure, and therefore the remedial request is more strict than the bylaw itself. So in my review of the appeal application, I noted a couple of concerns, and sorry, just give me 1 second here. So as stated in the report, item number 1 required removal of all machinery, materials, and objects from the exterior, and or ensure that all machinery, materials, or objects are stored within a structure, and the exterior property is maintained in neat and tidy condition. The intent of the order was to ensure that the machinery, materials, or objects are not contained or stored within the exterior of the property. And so essentially, as a remedial action, Mr. Pearson suggested that a fencing is constructed around the material and other machinery that he has on the property. And the township does not agree with that conclusion and the way that the property is remediated. And that's because all this material is still exposed to the elements, and essentially what's clearly masked behind the fence is not a solution for having this property be brought into condition with standards. And that means that the property is still deemed unsightly and out of character with the surrounding environment. And essentially, the township is requesting that the order is modified to state, essentially item number 1 of the order is modified to state that all machinery, materials, and objects from the exterior is removed, as well as ensuring that the exterior property does not appear unsightly and out of character with the surrounding environment. And I just gonna make one last reference here that I have taken some time to review some case law, and there was multiple cases, and one specific standouts with the rural municipality of St. Clements in, I believe, in New Brunswick. The property standards committee for the municipality ruled that resolving that the structure being constructed by the property owner, described by him as a fence, did not address the unsightly nature of the property, and ordered that any derelict material and debris is removed. So just using some case law of what has been decided by other property standards committees. And I believe that throughout my years of experience and other decisions made by other property standards committees have been quite similar in nature, that any property in the exterior should be kept neat, in a neat and tidy condition, and having a fence as a matter of remediating the property is not a solution to essentially fix the unsightly nature of the property. So I'm open to any comments or feedback by the property standards committee.
Okay,
anytime. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Levetsky, I'm going to ask that Brian Pearson, Mr. Brian Pearson, give me the opportunity to ask questions of you before I turn it over to the committee members. Okay, Mr. Pearson, you may ask.
Absolutely.
You may ask Mr. Levetsky any questions you wish. You have 10 minutes to probe and ask questions.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Ivan, I suppose one question would be if a fence is constructed and all of the materials are inside the fence such that you can't see the materials, and the materials are stored inside the fence in a neat and tidy manner, would that be considered unsightly if you can only see the fence and you cannot see any materials?
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Pearson, throughout my years of experience, any matters that I've seen remediated as through a fence being constructed around the property are essentially prone to a lot of problems that can occur throughout the years. And as I mentioned before, things that are permitted to accumulate might start to become out of character and become more unsightly through time. So usually what you find in a community in the area surrounding your properties, essentially most properties around you are zoned agricultural, and the exterior of these properties are kept clean of any kind of materials or equipment. Essentially, they're the only thing that's stored in the exterior are vehicles, and their exterior property is maintained, the grass is cut, there's no personal items being kept outside. So this is essentially the expectation of property standards. It's not for the property to look like a storage yard, because this is not something that's usually permitted in the agricultural section. And it appears unsightly, and it detracts from the general landscape. So a fence merely masks that what's going on beyond the walls of that fence, and it's not a solution.
Would I be allowed to have a fence with no material stored inside?
Absolutely. So anybody is permitted to have a fence. There's no restrictions on that.
So I can make a rectangular fenced enclosure?
There's no, as I said, there's no restriction as long as that fence does not impede on the sideline triangles and cause a safety issue. So the township currently does not have a fence bylaw to regulate fences.
Okay, and just to clarify, what you're saying is, so I'm allowed to have a fence, but I'm not allowed to put things inside that fenced enclosure, say, below the height of say the fence is 6 feet. You would not be satisfied with materials being stored neatly inside the fenced enclosure below the 6 foot height.
Essentially, as I mentioned, anything that's stored in the exterior, if nobody around your property stores things in the exterior, having your property detract from that landscape, it appears, it has the capability to appear unsightly, right? So there are some properties that might begin with having a very organized and neatly stored areas, and that could be deemed acceptable by certain residents. And throughout my experience, I've seen things develop over time where properties become more unsightly with more materials being brought onto the property. So whether it's materials, whether it's debris, whether it's equipment, it does not appear to be a property that is used for residential purposes. So if you find a residentially used parcel used for other means, and there's storage of material or debris within a fence, that more often than not appears unsightly.
So just to clarify, you're saying that it's not allowed because even if we make it look good, we might someday make it not look good?
That's not what I said.
You said the words, it has the potential to become unsightly?
It does have the potential to become unsightly, but as I said, in my experience, material kept in the exterior, no matter in what way or form, in an area that's used for residential purposes, you do not find that. There's many properties that are inspected on daily basis, and the expectation in areas that are used for residential purposes is that personal belongings, household belongings are not kept in the exterior. And that's because they make the property look unkept. They make the property look unsightly, and they have the capability of lowering the standards in the community. That's why there's minimum maintenance standards for a property.
Okay, I think everyone's knows what I'm kind of getting at. But I'll you mentioned another question. You mentioned some complaints. How many different complaints? Like, were there multiple different?
There's multiple, and I'm not at liberty to discuss how many complaints. Because certain information is kept confidential under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. But I can tell you that there has been complaints filed with the township. No matter how many complaints and what nature, we're required to investigate them.
Okay.
And that's beyond the jurisdiction of this committee.
Okay. I'll end my questioning there.
Okay, thank you. So we'll turn it over to the committee members. Dennis, you got the floor to ask Mr. Lunawetsky any questions you may have for clarification.
I'm good with this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Deep. Deep,
Ivan, with the bylaw officer. Couple of things that, I mean, I'm pretty sure the property is not zoned with, outside storage. And also I think all those scaffolding needs to be located indoor in some sort of shed or either like something enclosed structure. I did manage to drive by this morning. I did have a look at it, and I think even the shipping containers don't need to be there. So that's where I stand. I don't have any questions.
Okay, Dan?
A question for Ivan. What type of building would be required?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the expectation is that the materials or the equipment is not stored in the exterior. So whether there's no specific answer to this question, unfortunately. If it's enclosed within a building that has 4 walls and a roof, and that is done under official approval by the township and obtaining a building permit and specific zoning approvals, that would be sufficient to essentially remove everything from the exterior and kept within an interior building.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question of Mr. Vesky. Can you tell me what time of day the noise complaints were?
Okay, if you just give me one moment just to look at the notes here. I believe there was just one noise complaint that was filed. There was no multiple noise complaints, and this was at, bear with me for one moment here. I'm just gonna have to. The complaint is not specific as to what time, and they were concerned with the ongoing truck movements in and out from the property, and the complaint was filed during the afternoon. So going to safely assume that it's most likely close to the time when the incident might have happened.
Okay, you have the following clause in your report. It says this can often create an opportunity for the exterior conditions of the property enclosed within the fence area to deteriorate further with time and create a further unsafe condition on the property. So is that saying that the fence will deteriorate over time?
Was not referring to the safe. Sorry, the fence, Mr. Chair. I was deterring into the conditions on the property that they're enclosed within the fence. And just to be more specific, throughout my years of experience that I've observed residential properties, agricultural properties that have a fence, have stored materials, personal belongings, and they have become more unsightly by accumulating these materials. And there's essentially sometimes a storage of derelict materials, vehicles, equipment, and everything in its entirety appears unsightly and out of character for the property. So if a property is being used for residential purposes, it doesn't look like a residential home. And if that property is used for agricultural purposes, it does not reflect that type of zoning. Not to even mention that the property in general, having all the materials stored there and equipment, detracts from the general landscape of all the property surrounding that.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Do any other members have any further follow-up questions? Dennis? Okay, Deep?
No, I do not.
Okay, Dan?
No further questions.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Brian Pearson to be sworn in by Lynn and give his testimony.
Hey, Brian Pearson, do you solemnly affirm that the evidence that you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, committee, and thank you, Chair. Okay, so just to back up and give you some background on our story, we purchased this property in February of this year. We had intended to, we have a scaffolding business. It's a family business. And one of the things we were interested in with this property is it does have a cleared area that really resembles a parking lot. And we thought, hey, we can store our scaffolding equipment in this area. We inquired with the township and asked them if this was permitted. And the township said they would, it was a legislative assistant, Claire Collinson with the township. She went and conferred with her colleagues and came back a week later and said that this was actually a permitted thing to do in connection with the home industry, knowing what our zoning was. And so our understanding before we actually made the purchase was that this was permitted. I will fully admit and agree with the property standards officer that the condition of the property is not what we wanted when he came by to see it. And Deep, you as well, we're not there yet. We don't have it in the way that we want the property. We agree that it's unsightly and perhaps unsafe in the condition that it is now. We're waiting to sort of get the result of this before we take action on what we're going to do to correct everything. We live on this property and we want it to look good. We want to get along with our neighbors. We want to fit in the township. We're excited and we're happy to be here. It is my belief that we can make a fence. We can make it look good. We can leave the materials in the fence. It's my belief that we're actually going above and beyond the letter of the law by doing so. And I think that the potential to look unsightly is not really a reason to prevent us from doing so. I think we'd be following the law. And I think that if it becomes unsightly, then that's a property standards violation. and it should be addressed that way. Let's see what else I have here. Oh, okay. So I just wanted to address some of the complaints. I think can be explained a little bit. So at the time that Ivan, the property standards officer, came by, the day before, we were actually starting to clear some space where we had intended to use to store the scaffolding and put fencing around it. So there was chainsaw activity going on that entire day before, as well as there were some stumps in the backyard, and we had hired a landscaping company to bring some equipment in. And so there was a backhoe activity, and maybe they had big trucks, so they pulled up a lot of stumps. That explains a lot of the dead and decaying material that was on the property that we've since removed. So there are 3 defects in the property standards order. We're not disputing defect 2 and 3. We fully agree with Mr. Linowski's property standards violation. It's item 1. We agree with the defect there as well. It's the remedial action that we want. We believe that the remedial action goes above and beyond what the bylaw is asking for. The item 1 defect refers to bylaw section 4.1G. And I don't know if I need to read the bylaw, but essentially it's really concerned with an unsafe condition or an unsightly condition. So the remedial action, it calls for the materials to be stored in a structure. And my argument is that the bylaw doesn't require that. It requires it to not be unsightly and for it to be safe. Further, my next argument is, okay, I mean, maybe it's reasonable putting it in a structure will help make it attractive and help satisfy that bylaw. So I would say, what is a structure? The bylaw does define a structure, and it simply says a structure is anything constructed, either permanent or temporary, the use of which requires location on or an attachment to something having location on the ground. To me, that's very clear that a fence qualifies as a structure. So I believe that by building an enclosed opaque fence that you can't see through at all, high enough that you can't see the materials going above, I think we're more than satisfying what the bylaw is looking for. And I think that there won't be any issue with having an unsightly condition. We did talk to our immediate neighbor. The only neighbor we have that would actually be able to see anything in our yard from their actual house. She had no concerns, even with the way it is today. She didn't seem to care, and thought, everything was fine. Not that I'm saying we leave it the way it is. I fully agree that we're gonna deal with everything. Shipping containers are gonna go. Essentially everything there is going to be gone. Scaled back. We're not gonna have as much equipment. It's gonna be all enclosed inside a fence. Let's see. Yes, it is a large property. There's not a lot of, like I say, there's only one neighbor that is really like a sort of a house neighbor. The other neighbor it's basically just vacant land kind of surrounding our property. And our property is just under 2 hectares. It's 4.5 acres. There's really not, it's really hard to see in the property. Yeah, that's all my arguments, and I'll leave it there.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Lewandowski if he has any questions of Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any question per se. I just have a comment regarding one of Mr. Pearson's, I guess, review of the property standards orders. I do agree with what he said about a structure, the way that it's defined in the bylaw, and I do not dispute that in any means or form. Sometimes property standards officers use the term structure and a building. Often we use the two terms, and sometimes we might make a mistake when issuing an order, and I think that's exactly what's happened here. The intention of the order was to enclose all the material within a building. So essentially, a building is a structure that has four walls and a roof, and a fence could be considered a structure, but it does not meet the intention of what the order required. So in this case, Mr. Pearson commented that a fence would essentially not make the property appear unsightly to the surrounding neighbors and so on. And my comments to that were, as indicated in the report, that the fence is not solution because it merely masks what happens beyond the property. And I know that the Property Standards Committee does not oversee any zoning matters. It's beyond the scope of the committee, but this property does permit a business to operate such as a home industry, and usually home industries do not have a exterior storage as a permitted use, and that's outside storage is not usually permitted within a highway industrial type of areas, as they reflect the neighborhood that surround that type of property. So in a residential or agricultural type parcels, you don't find items or household belongings stored in the exterior because it makes that yard unsightly. So essentially anything that's stored in the exterior, whether it's a scaffolding, bicycles, or personal equipment such as lawnmowers and so on, put together might make the property appear unsightly, whether it has a fence or not. I do investigate backyards on a daily basis, and I do.
Mr. Lenowski, I think you gave your testimony already.
Sure.
And I think it's only fair that if you have any questions of Mr. Pearson.
No, I do not.
think it's
Yeah.
not, okay, that's fair enough. So.
Yeah.
If you don't have any questions, I'd like to turn it over to the committee members. Dennis?
Yeah, my only question.
You're breaking up, Dennis.
With the value of your scaffolding, that or structure. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, my question just was, with the value of the material, would it not pay to have a structure to keep it out of the weather?
That's a good question. It's galvanized steel and aluminum primarily, and it's designed to be outside, and typically is stored outside.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, Deep.
A temporary storage building, I've seen them in the forums. Would those comply with the bylaw order?
It's a question of Mr. Pearson, okay? I don't know if he's equipped to answer that question, but I'll let him try.
Mr. Pearson, would you consider getting a temporary storage building to store all the material enclosed?
Possibly. It's like I say, part of the reason we bought this property is because it had such a suitable area that made a lot of sense for storing the scaffolding. It would be kind of a large expense for us. I suppose we'd consider it, but it's we'd probably look to renting storage space somewhere else, which is also very expensive. It would be a large hit to our business. And like I say, we certainly inquired and tried to make sure it was allowed before we bought the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dan?
The one concern I had is snow removal in the winter time. You've got outside storage and no matter what you do, we're gonna have a bad winter. You're gonna be removing snow that's accumulated on top of your equipment or whatever that you're storing, and that's gonna create more noise for the neighbors as well. And, you know, unless you have a structure, I don't know how you're gonna deal with that.
That's a good question, Dan. We are used to that through running our business. We've stored our scaffolding materials in other sites similar to what we'd be dealing with here. And the solution to that is to keep it really neat and organized so that when we want to get at it, we can. We'll leave, you know, a laneway down the middle so that we can, you know, take a snow blower and blow the snow. I don't think there'd be any noise dissimilar from someone clearing their driveway or anything similar to that.
Okay, fair enough. That's it for me.
Okay, I have several questions. You, on your sketch, you had a size of the proposed fenced area. What is that roughly?
It's roughly 40 by 80.
40 by 80?
Yeah. We are open. I would say too, if we do lose the appeal, it would be nice to know, like, we would, of course, move our scaffolding out. It would be nice to know that we'd be able to store like a smaller amount of our like sort of overflow or just stuff that we just aren't using for a year inside a fenced enclosure that's smaller, that's you know, maybe 40 by 80 is too big. I don't know what the answer to that is, but 40 by 80 was the space that we kind of need to sort of operate the business just in this local area. So that's something I'd put out there as well.
Okay, in terms of the gate or door to the this gated facility or to building, where would you propose it be located? North face, south face?
The gate would be west facing toward, I guess, I don't have, are you guys looking at a map of the property by chance?
Yeah, I'm sure we're pretty familiar, so be facing Town Line Road, what you're saying.
You'd be facing Town Line, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Okay, the height of the stored material, you mentioned 6 feet. Is that as high as you go?
Well, so it does stack and it can go higher. So I suppose I would look to the committee on guidelines on, we'd keep it below the fence height. However, how high can we build the fence? I suppose, like maybe we want to build a bigger fence. I'm proposing that we don't have the material above the fence height to keep it looking good. If that makes sense.
Okay. And you mentioned that your storage boxes will be gone. These are the big industrial crates?
The shipping containers, yeah. So, yeah, we're using them right now to store like our furniture and stuff like that as we're kind of moving into the house. We sort of got a couple family members that just, their house just closed and they're moving in. So that's kind of separate from this, and we've already sort of agreed, okay, yes, we're not allowed to have those shipping containers and we're taking them out.
Okay, and you're proposing a fence. What sort of fence are you proposing? You said opaque fence in your documentation. What do you consider as a opaque, good-looking fence?
That's a good question. We haven't got that far. We're like, I would say like a wood fence. Wood with COVID, wood is so expensive. There are materials that actually we use as part of our business. Like there's a mesh that can go on top of like a chain link fence, and that can look really attractive. And we've done that for our customers actually. So we're very familiar with that. It can be any number of color.
Okay, when you say mesh, is it a see-through mesh? It's not opaque then if it's a mesh.
Yeah, well, yeah, so you can get there's various different types of mesh. Some of it is a little bit see-through. like you might see on a construction site, but some of it is much more opaque where you can't see through it all. And there's ways of putting a backing on there so that there's just you can't see anything at all.
Okay, so what would you propose to be in this enclosed area?
That would be scaffold racks and baskets that essentially it looks like a rack, maybe 4 feet by 4 feet, and then a series of scaffolding tubes that would sit in the rack. And then, so what you would see would be, rows of like rack, like along the sort of edges of the fence.
Okay, I guess I'm getting at this, with your equipment, your tow mower or forklift truck, whatever you use, would that be in there too?
We are planning on building, we do want to build a structure, a shop. However, like if we put the scaffolding in there, that would fill the shop. So stuff like forklift and lawnmower and stuff like that would go in the shop or the garage or something like that.
Okay, I have no further questions. So Courtney, would you take us into closed session so we can discuss this?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I just ask that the attendees voluntarily remove themselves from the meeting. If I remove you as the host, then you won't be able to get back into the meeting. So I would just ask if our bylaw enforcement officer, our appellant, and any attendees in the audience just temporarily leave the meeting.
So how would you advise them to come back in so they know?
So I do have Brian's email and Ivan's email, and I believe we have one attendee. And I believe I have his email as well, so I will send all three
Very
when
good.
we're ready.
Okay, thank you. So we can have Brian and Ivan and the attendee log out of the meeting.
Great, thank you.
I believe we're just waiting for Mr. Sean Marsh, if you wouldn't mind just leaving the meeting here. Mr. Chair, I don't see Mr. Marsh responding, so I may have to remove him, but he won't be able to get back in.
Fair enough.
Okay, Mr. Marsh, I'm going to just be removing you now. Mr. Chair, everyone has been removed and the webinar is now locked. And
Okay, fair enough. So what I suggest is
sorry,
we go
Mr.
around
Chair.
the table, everybody put forward their comments, and then we'll go around as many. Okay, Courtney, when we have the other two gentlemen there, we'll carry on with the item. Okay, we have both Mr. Pierce and Mr. Lewandowski here. So the committee has deliberated and we're amending the order. And I'll be asking Lynn Banks, our Development Legislative Coordinator, to read it out. But first of all, I'd like to advise that you will receive the decision in writing from Lynn within 10 days. And if you do not like the revised order, then you have the opportunity to take it to Superior Court. So I'll ask Lynn to read it, please, verbally. And then
Certainly,
we'll-
Mr.
and
Certainly,
then
Mr.
we'll-
Chair. Yep.
And then we'll adjourn the item.
So the committee has decided to modify the order to read with respect to item number 1, remove all machinery, materials, and objects from the exterior by September 30th, 2021, or ensure that all machinery, materials, or objects are stored within a building that conforms to the township zoning bylaw and with the township's building code requirements, and all exterior property is maintained in a neat and tidy condition. And in the event that the appellant decides to construct a building, the appellant shall be required to obtain a building permit and complete the final inspection of the building on or before August 10th, 2022. And finally, item numbers 2 and 3 of the order must be complied with by September 30th, 2021.
Okay, so we've got that. So no questions. That's our ruling on the matter. And I'd like to adjourn this item and we move into the next item of the agenda. Okay, close the meeting. We have none. Next meeting is Tuesday, September 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And I'd like to have a move to adjourn the meeting at 9:41.
Also move.
Okay, moved by Dennis and second by Deep. All in favor? Dennis,
In favor?
Deep,
In favor.
Dan,
In favor.
and I'm in favor as well. Okay, thank you. It was a tough meeting. We got through it. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Nate.